The invitation arrived without much ceremony, but the implications were clear. Earth had been summoned. The Zothari, an ancient race known for their tactical brilliance and unrivaled AI technology, extended their offer, a simulated battle, a friendly test, they called it. It was humanity's chance to prove their worth in the galactic fold, a place still new and unfamiliar to them. Captain Sarah Drake stood among the best Earth had to offer. A no-nonsense military strategist, she'd seen her fair share of battle. But this wasn't like anything she had faced before. The battlefield would be virtual, the opponents entirely machine, an army of Zothari-crafted AI, each one designed to be faster, smarter, and more coordinated than any human soldier could hope to be. Drake wasn't alone. Her team was a mix of elite personnel from across various disciplines, each chosen for their unique skill set. Dr. Ethan Banks, the cyber warfare specialist, could hack his way into just about anything. He wasn't much for fieldwork, but his sharp mind was their best weapon against the digital nature of this challenge. Alongside them was Sergeant Mark Rivera, a man who lived and breathed unconventional warfare. He thrived in chaos, making him the perfect counterbalance to the precise order of their AI foes. The terms were simple: defeat the Zothari AI in a series of tactical engagements within a controlled simulation, all while being watched by the alien strategists. The prize? Potential alliances, trade agreements, and a secured place for humanity among the stars. Failure, however, was unspoken. The Zothari didn't need to elaborate on what would happen if humans were deemed too unpredictable, too wild to be trusted in the galaxy's complex political landscape. The team assembled in the briefing room, faces stoic but betraying an underlying tension. The room buzzed with the low hum of technology, walls covered in holographic displays showing rotating views of the simulated battlefield. "This is it," Drake said, her voice cutting through the silence. "We're not just playing for a win. We're proving to these Zothari that we belong out there, in their world, as equals. Fail, and we might not get another shot." Banks shifted uncomfortably, staring at the rotating landscape. "Their AI has run countless simulations. They've studied every known strategy, every possible formation. They don't make mistakes." "Good thing we do," Rivera muttered from the back, leaning casually against the wall. "They won't see us coming if we don't play by their rules." Drake smirked. "Exactly. This isn't about matching their precision. We hit them with what they don't expect. Creativity, chaos. We don't fight them where they're strongest. We make them come to us, on our terms." There was a quiet determination among the group as they suited up, stepping into the simulation chamber. They had been briefed thoroughly. This wasn't just a test of their combat skills, it was a test of their ability to think differently, to be unpredictable. As the team was loaded into the simulation, the world around them blurred into form. They found themselves standing in a vast, desolate landscape, a mix of desert and ruin that stretched out as far as the eye could see. The Zothari AI would arrive soon, and the battle would begin. Rivera surveyed the area, his eyes narrowing as he took in the details. "They're going to come straight for us. Precision strikes, no hesitation. That's what they're good at." "Let them," Drake replied. "We'll play along just long enough to make them think we're following the script. Then we break away." It didn't take long. The first wave hit them with alarming speed. Sleek, humanoid machines, moving with mechanical efficiency, attacked with pinpoint accuracy. The team scrambled for cover, exchanging fire as the AI soldiers advanced relentlessly. For a moment, it seemed as if the Zothari's confidence in their AI was justified. The machines didn't make mistakes. But then, Drake signaled the shift. The team pulled back, not in retreat, but to regroup at a more defensible position, a rocky outcrop that offered minimal cover but was difficult for the AI to navigate. "This is where we make our stand," she called out. "Let's see how they handle a little improvisation." As the AI pushed forward, Banks was already working. His fingers flew across a portable interface, hacking into the simulation's environment. Within seconds, the rocky terrain around them shifted subtly. The AI soldiers, accustomed to predictable battlefield layouts, faltered just enough for Rivera and the others to launch their counterattack. The machines hesitated, recalibrating, but it was too late. The humans struck, exploiting the AI's momentary confusion. The first wave of Zothari forces was obliterated in a hail of gunfire and explosions, but the team knew this was only the beginning. That worked once, Rivera said, wiping sweat from his brow. But they'll adapt. They always do, Banks added grimly. The next wave will be smarter. Drake nodded. Good. Let them keep adapting. We'll stay one step ahead. For the first time since they entered the simulation, Drake saw something in her team's eyes that hadn't been there before: confidence. The Zothari may have had superior technology, but humans had something else: the ability to think on the fly, to improvise, and to break the rules when necessary. The team regrouped, catching their breath as they waited for the next wave to come. The Zothari were watching. The galaxy was watching. And as far as Captain Sarah Drake was concerned, the humans were just getting started. The battlefield shifted without warning. The landscape morphed from desolate desert to a dense forest in the blink of an eye, a clear reminder that this was no ordinary conflict. The Zothari AI forces were about to strike again, and this time, they wouldn't be as easy to fool. The human team was ready, but they knew things were about to get much harder. Rivera crouched low, eyes scanning the thick trees. They'll come fast and hard, trying to overwhelm us again. But we won't give them the chance. Banks, already working on his tablet, nodded without looking up. They're learning from us as much as we're learning from them. I've seen the patterns. Each wave gets more precise, more adapted to our tactics. We're going to need something new if we want to keep throwing them off. Drake, always focused, kept her voice low but firm. We'll keep shifting. Stay unpredictable. The more chaos we create, the harder it'll be for them to anticipate us. They didn't have to wait long. The trees ahead began to rustle, and the faint hum of approaching machines filled the air. The Zothari AI soldiers emerged, their metallic bodies almost blending into the environment as they moved with calculated precision. This time, there were more of them, moving in tighter formations, faster, more methodical. The human team responded immediately. Shots were fired, quick and deliberate, as they worked to hold their ground. But as expected, the AI's tactics had changed. Their movements were more fluid, less predictable, as if they were starting to mimic the human team's improvisational style. They're adapting, Rivera grunted as he fired off a shot. This isn't going to be as easy as the last round. Drake adjusted her strategy on the fly. Split up. Keep them guessing. Don't let them lock onto a pattern. The team scattered, each soldier moving to a different part of the forest, forcing the AI to spread out in response. But as the machines fanned out, it became clear they were no longer falling into simple traps. They were anticipating the team's moves with eerie accuracy, predicting where each human would be before they even arrived. They're reading us, Banks muttered, eyes glued to his interface. This is bad. They're learning faster than we thought. Drake's mind raced. The Zothari AI was adjusting in real time, no longer just following preset commands. The Zothari strategists must have upgraded the simulation, giving the AI more autonomy, more ability to think and react like humans. But even in the face of this, she knew there had to be a way to stay ahead. Suddenly, an idea hit her. Banks, can you manipulate the environment again? Something drastic. Banks looked up, startled. I can try, but they'll be expecting it now. Doesn't matter, Drake said. We need to make it so chaotic that even they can't keep up. Change the landscape. Do it now. Banks didn't hesitate. His fingers flew across the interface, and moments later, the forest floor beneath them began to shift and warp. Trees bent at unnatural angles, the ground rippled as if it were liquid, and large boulders suddenly erupted from the soil. The once static environment became a nightmare of moving parts, a living puzzle that even the AI struggled to navigate. The Zothari soldiers faltered. Their mechanical precision was built for stable environments, not the swirling chaos that now surrounded them. They hesitated, recalculating their next moves, and in that brief moment of confusion, the human team struck. Rivera moved swiftly, taking down several AI units with well-placed shots. Drake coordinated the attack, leading her team in a series of rapid strikes that decimated the AI forces. But even as they gained the upper hand, the human team knew this victory would be short-lived. The AI would learn, would adapt again, and the next wave would be even tougher. "They'll be back," Drake said, her tone matter-of-fact. "And next time, they'll be ready for the environment shift. We need to stay ahead." Banks wiped sweat from his brow, his expression grim. "I'm running out of ways to trick them. If we can't find something new, something they can't predict, we're finished." Drake didn't respond immediately. Her mind was already moving to the next plan, searching for any edge they could exploit. Then it hit her: the AI could adapt to tactics, to changes in the environment, but there was one thing they might not be able to predict: emotion. "They can't anticipate human fear," she said slowly. "They don't understand desperation, irrationality. We need to act like we're panicking, like we're making mistakes. If we make it look like we're breaking down under pressure, they might not be able to keep up." Rivera raised an eyebrow. "You want us to pretend to lose it?" "That's risky." Drake nodded. "Exactly. They expect us to keep playing the game logically, to keep adjusting our tactics based on what they do. But if we give them chaos, real chaos, human emotion, they might not be able to adapt fast enough." Banks hesitated, then nodded. "It could work. If we make it look like we're falling apart, they'll react to what they think is a breakdown, not an actual strategy." The team prepared for the next wave. As the landscape settled back into a semblance of normalcy, the AI soldiers regrouped, their movements more fluid, more dangerous than before. But this time, the human team wasn't fighting just to survive. They were fighting to outsmart an opponent that couldn't comprehend the true depths of human unpredictability. As the next wave hit, the team scattered again, but this time, their movements were erratic, seemingly disorganized. They fired wildly, shouted incoherent commands, and stumbled through the battlefield as if they were losing control. The AI, sensing what it thought was a collapse in human strategy, pushed forward aggressively, moving in for the kill. But Drake's team wasn't panicking. They were luring the AI into overextending, drawing them into a trap of their own making. And when the moment came, the humans struck with ruthless efficiency, cutting through the overconfident machines and leaving their shattered remains scattered across the battlefield. The battle ended as quickly as it had begun. The AI forces lay in ruins, and the human team stood victorious, though the cost of maintaining their edge was growing heavier with each engagement. "They won't fall for that again," Rivera said, breathing heavily. "We'll need something even crazier next time." Drake nodded, already thinking ahead. "We'll figure it out. We have to. We're not done yet." The tension in the air was palpable. The team had managed to survive the previous waves, but they all knew the next one wouldn't be as forgiving. Each time they pushed back the AI forces, the Zothri observers refined their tactics. It was only a matter of time before the simulation became a lethal no-win scenario. Banks was pacing, his mind racing for a new solution. "We're running out of tricks," he muttered. "They're not just adapting to our strategies, they're learning us. Individually. Every time we pull a new move, they're storing it, processing it, and next time it's harder." Drake stood silently for a moment, assessing their options. The Zothri's AI wasn't just an opponent. It was an evolving intelligence, mirroring the human's flexibility but faster, sharper. The pressure was building, not just from the constant waves of attack but from the weight of knowing that failure here meant more than just losing a simulation. The Zothri weren't merely studying their tactics. They were assessing humanity itself. "They're not just testing us to see if we're capable allies," Drake said, her voice calm but resolute. "They're seeing if we're too dangerous. We need to be careful, or they'll decide we're a threat they need to eliminate." Rivera, who had been reloading his gear, looked up. "So we keep winning, but not too well? We're supposed to walk a tightrope between strong and too strong? How do we even do that?" "We have to keep showing them we can think on our feet," Drake replied. "That we're valuable because of our unpredictability. But if we overdo it, they'll view us as a loose cannon. We need to show we can handle complexity without being reckless." Banks, always the realist, chimed in. I can try to manipulate the next scenario, but honestly, the Zothri are watching us closer than we thought. They're learning how we handle stress, how we make decisions under pressure. Every time we think we're leading them off course, they're finding new data to analyze. Drake nodded. Which means we need to stay ahead. We can't just rely on brute force or even clever tactics anymore. We need to play with their expectations, lead them down the wrong path. Before she could elaborate, the environment shifted again, and they were plunged into what looked like an urban landscape. Tight alleys, towering buildings, endless corners. It was a maze, designed to confuse and disorient. Perfect for the Zothri AI's superior coordination. And that's when it clicked for Drake. The Zothri weren't just pushing harder, they were testing their team's ability to navigate complex, unfamiliar environments. They're trying to overwhelm us with options, she realized. They want us to split up, get lost in these corridors, and pick us off one by one. Rivera grinned. Then we don't play their game. Stick together. Let them think we're struggling, then hit them when they least expect it. The first wave of AI units descended into the streets with precision, but the humans didn't scatter. Instead, they stayed tightly packed, forcing the machines into bottlenecks where their numbers couldn't be used effectively. The Zothri AI hesitated, trying to recalculate their approach. But the pressure was still mounting. Banks kept checking his readings, frowning at the data streaming in. They're tracking us more intensely than ever. Not just our movements but our heart rates, our decision-making patterns. It's like they're dissecting our psychology. That's exactly what they're doing, Drake said. They want to know how far they can push us before we break. And then, just as quickly as the last wave had been neutralized, something changed. Banks' screen flickered. Wait, this isn't right, he muttered. They've altered the parameters. They're not just sending AI at us anymore. They're restructuring the whole simulation. Drake's stomach sank. What do you mean? The Zothri aren't just watching us anymore. They're actively interfering now. Look, he pointed to the data streams on his screen. They're modifying the rules of the simulation as we go. They want to see how we react to a shifting scenario, one where the rules themselves are unstable. Rivera cursed under his breath. So now they're playing God with the battlefield? Great. Drake clenched her jaw. This wasn't just a test anymore, it was a full-blown manipulation. The Zothri were deliberately pushing them into an impossible situation, seeing how they handled the unraveling of order. But instead of panic, Drake felt something else, a spark of determination. Fine, she said. If they want to break the rules, so can we. Banks stared at her, confused. What are you suggesting? They expect us to react logically, to try and adapt to whatever new challenges they throw at us. But what if we don't? What if we deliberately act in ways that make no sense? If they're watching our psychology, we'll give them something they can't predict. Rivera raised an eyebrow. You want us to go rogue? Do things completely irrational? Drake smiled grimly. Not irrational. Just unexpected. If they're tracking patterns, we throw them off the scent. We do things they can't anticipate because they're not based on logic or strategy. Banks nodded slowly, beginning to see the brilliance in her plan. You mean we act on gut instinct? No pattern, no predictability. Exactly, Drake confirmed. We're going to show them what it really means to be human. The next wave came, but this time, instead of reacting with well-coordinated attacks or defensive maneuvers, the team did the opposite. They moved erratically, firing in directions that didn't make sense, changing positions for no apparent reason, and refusing to fall into any discernible pattern. To the Zothri AI, it must have seemed like madness. But it worked. The AI, programmed to respond to logical threats and coordinated tactics, faltered in the face of what appeared to be chaos. Their responses slowed, their precision degraded, and soon they were making mistakes, misjudging positions, underestimating movements. The human team exploited these errors mercilessly. As the last of the AI forces crumbled, Banks let out a breath of relief. I can't believe that worked. Drake wasn't celebrating yet. It won't work forever. The Zothri are too smart to fall for the same trick twice. But for now, we've bought ourselves some time. Rivera nodded. But we're running out of moves. They're going to keep pushing, and we're going to keep running out of ways to trick them. Drake knew he was right. The game was getting deadlier by the minute, and the stakes were climbing higher with each passing moment. They had survived this round, but it was only a matter of time before the Zothri closed in on their limits. We'll keep going, Drake said, her voice steady. Because we have to. Until we figure out how to win this for good. The calm before the storm settled uneasily over the team. They had managed to outmaneuver the Zothri AI for now, but the weight of each small victory was beginning to feel like a heavier burden. Drake stood silently, scanning the environment, knowing they were running out of tricks and time. They had pushed the AI to its limits, but there was no denying that the Zothri were pushing back even harder. And it wouldn't be long before the simulation reached a tipping point. Banks was working furiously on his tablet, trying to find some hole in the system they could exploit, but his face showed no sign of discovery. They've locked down every angle. I've been monitoring their movements, but now the AI is completely randomizing its own responses. We've triggered something, forced them to embrace our unpredictability. They've learned faster than I anticipated. Rivera, leaning against a nearby structure, shook his head. Great. So now we're up against machines that think like us. How do we win against ourselves? Drake's mind raced, her thoughts sharp and clear despite the exhaustion creeping in. The simulation had gone beyond mere tactics. The Zothri were playing an entirely new game, bending the rules they had once adhered to. The AI had evolved to a point where it could mimic human adaptability, and that meant they were now fighting an opponent with all their strengths, but none of their weaknesses. For a moment, Drake considered the grim reality. Could they really win? Or were they just delaying the inevitable? If they showed too much capability, the Zothri might see humanity as a threat, an unpredictable force to be controlled, or worse, eliminated. But if they didn't show enough, they would be seen as weak, unworthy of a place among the galactic powers. Either way, the outcome felt like it was slipping from their grasp. Then it hit her, an idea so simple and audacious that it almost made her laugh. We're done trying to outsmart them, she said suddenly, her voice cutting through the tense silence. Banks looked up, confused. What do you mean? We can't just stop. They'll crush us. No, Drake continued, her mind racing. We've been trying to win this game on their terms. But what if we don't play at all? What if we take ourselves out of the equation entirely? Rivera frowned, not following. Take ourselves out? How does that help? Drake's eyes gleamed with sudden clarity. The Zothri are watching us because they're trying to gauge how we operate under pressure, right? They're testing us for two things, capability and control. They want to know if we're too dangerous, too unpredictable. But what they don't understand is that human strength doesn't come from control. It comes from knowing when to let go. Banks blinked, finally starting to catch on. You're saying, we stop playing by their rules entirely? But how? Drake smiled, a sharp, determined look in her eyes. We surrender. Not in the traditional sense, but strategically. We give them what they don't expect at all, nothing. No moves, no tactics. We disrupt their entire analysis by refusing to engage. Rivera stared at her. You want us to stand down? Won't they just wipe us out? Not if we do it right, Drake replied. The Zothri are expecting us to keep fighting, to keep pushing harder. They've designed this simulation to track our every move, to force us into a corner where they can judge us based on how we handle conflict. But if we refuse to play into that, if we make them believe we're unpredictable in the one way they didn't consider, through restraint, they'll have no data to analyze. They won't know what to make of us. Banks nodded slowly, his fingers moving across his tablet. I can set it up. We stop responding, let the AI think we're making some kind of calculated retreat or deliberate inaction. They'll scramble to figure out what we're doing. Rivera's face softened into a grin. So we win by losing? Bold. I like it. Drake didn't waste time. This isn't about losing. It's about resetting the board. They're trying to calculate us down to the last move, but if we don't give them anything to work with, they'll be forced to reassess everything they've gathered so far. We disrupt their entire framework. As the next wave of AI forces appeared on the horizon, the team did the unthinkable. They didn't engage. No gunfire, no movement. The Zothri AI hesitated, confused by the sudden lack of response. The mechanical soldiers halted their advance, unsure how to proceed without the expected resistance. They're pausing, Banks said, his eyes locked on his screen. They don't know what to do. Drake kept her voice calm. Good. Let them figure it out. We've changed the rules, and now they have to deal with it. Minutes passed, and still the AI forces stood motionless, recalculating. The Zothri observers, watching from behind the scenes, were no doubt scrambling to understand the sudden shift in human behavior. Every tactic, every bit of data they had collected, was suddenly useless. Then, slowly, the AI began to retreat. It was subtle at first, a few units pulling back from the front lines, but soon the entire force started to withdraw. The human team, standing silently, watched as their opponents dissolved into the distance, unable to comprehend the unexpected. Banks let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. It's working! They're pulling back. Rivera crossed his arms, a satisfied smirk on his face. Who knew the best way to win was by doing nothing? Drake, though relieved, wasn't celebrating yet. We've bought ourselves time, but this isn't over. The Zothri will be reassessing everything we've done. We've shown them that we're not just warriors. They can't predict us, they can't control us. The AI forces had disappeared entirely now, leaving the human team alone in the eerie silence of the battlefield. But it wasn't a true victory, not yet. The Zothri would return, perhaps with new tactics, new approaches. But for now, they had forced the aliens to reconsider everything they thought they knew about humanity. Drake looked at her team, proud of what they had achieved. We've proven our point. We're not just survivors, we're something they can't understand. And that's our greatest strength. Banks smiled, exhaustion lining his features. So what now? Drake's eyes hardened. Now we wait. Let them come to us on our terms. And when they do, we'll be ready. The simulation might have paused, but the real test was only just beginning. The Zothri had seen what humans were capable of, and the humans, in turn, had shown that they were a force no algorithm could ever fully predict.